So 2025 is coming around the corner very quickly, and squads are going to be out for the Six Nations mid-January after those final pool matches in the Champions Cup. So I think now is a good time for me to pick my squad as I see it now. I'll probably change a little bit come those last Premiership matches, come those last Champions Cup matches. But most of the impressions have been made. Borthwick will be penning down his squad very, very soon, if not inked a lot of these names in already. So I'm going to pick mine, and I'd love to know what your squad would be and why. I'm not going to talk about all the individual players in too much detail because I've mentioned them all in my Premiership roundups, in other England videos. I just want to get into the nitty-gritty of actually selecting this 36-man squad. And like I said, I am going to go for a bit more talent in there, a bit more of players on form, and maybe drop out a couple of senior players. But yeah, there's some tight calls here. It depends how you'll want your side to play. I mean, there's definitely players you can pick to play a set piece and kicking game, which with the new law interpretations with no blockers at all could be something to go for. I'm not overly excited by that, but it's definitely an option. But anyway, let's get straight into it without making this video too long. Get into the props. Loose head prop, these are the guys that I see competing in my mind. Rod we haven't really seen enough of, although he has played for England quite a lot. Baxter was great in the summer in New Zealand, fallen off a little bit, but Genge came back and took the monster of the time. Genge is the only real experience there, so I do think he needs to stay. Add in a couple of youngsters, it's a tricky one, but I think Apoko Fajor and Finn Baxter alongside Genge is the best combination for me. Now, we know Apoko Fajor can play both sides, but let's put him in loose head for now. So that's a really exciting lineup. Probably Genge featuring as the experience and one of those two youngsters coming on. Quite like that as a lineup, but of course, scrummaging will be tested. Baxter scrummaging, a little bit questioned at times. Genge's been doing okay in the scrum, but didn't have a great autumn series, so not the strongest position, but could get a lot stronger as those youngsters get experience. Hooker-wise, I'm really liking Jamie Blamire of Newcastle at the moment, but then there's some solid performances coming in from Cowan-Dickey, from Jamie George, the experienced hookers. They're not the ball-playing hookers, they're not the quickest hookers, but Cowan-Dickey sticks his head in where it hurts, quite literally. George is the set-piece master. Then you've got Dan O'Gray and Langdon, who are just all over the place. Very quick, not quite as big. So it depends what sort of hookers you want to go for. I've ummed and erred here, but I've gone for three guys that I think cover a decent spread. Blamire is a big dude. He's a really big guy. Newcastle, they're struggling at the bottom there, but he is performing. His last couple of performances for them have been fantastic. Dan continues to come on and have a great impact. And O'Gray with his form for Bristol, I think, is so exciting. So yeah, a big change at hooker, ditching that experience of the captain Jamie George and Cowan-Dickey, although I'd take the argument to include them. But I'm going a bit more of a reboot, a bit more of a new look there. Be very excited to see how they go, although yes, it is risky. Now, tight head prop I see is a bit more straightforward. I think Joe Hayes of Leicester has come on leaps and bounds. He's incredibly strong. He's improved his scrummaging, and he's part of that beastie Leicester pack, which is great. He's really coming into top form at the right time. I think Fazagbon is the one you bring in there for experience. Maybe he doesn't play an awful lot. I think Will Stewart rounds it out as the starter, obviously. So if you had, say, Stewart and Hayes as a 1-2, I'd quite like the look of that. Let's see how those guys. So front row, hopeful, if not fully expectant. Let me know who you would pick. Second row wise, I don't think there's a huge amount of options there. Arthur Clarke looks interesting. Batley of Bristol looks exciting. But I think it's going to be the guys that I would normally go for of Chesham, Alex Coles, Atoji and Martin. Those four I think are pretty solid for me. I don't think the others are particularly close. Chandamunga is exciting, but maybe not quite at the level of the others yet. Ezekwe is a solid customer who will do a job, but I don't want a team that does a job. I want a team that could be special. So I think those four is pretty straightforward to me. What isn't straightforward is the back row. There's so many back row players you could pick from, obviously excluding Jack Willis in France, who is absolutely phenomenal, but he's not on this list because he can't be picked. Alfie Barbary is a name that was definitely in vogue a while ago, has dropped off a little bit, a couple of niggles I guess, but is he quite quick enough for internationals? I don't know. Unless he gets a start, we'll probably never know, but there's so many guys ahead of him. I don't know if his time will come. We will see. Many of you said, what if he'd stayed as hooker? Would he be a starting hooker? Well, I don't know what his set piece or his throwing would be like, but certainly physically he'd be the best hooker. But that's gone now. Cunningham South continues to put in decent performances for Harlequins. He's a young guy, he's improving, he's learning. I definitely want to have him in the squad. Of the Curries, Ben Curry's performing the best, certainly. His last game for Sale in the Champions Cup was phenomenal. They are saving Tom Curry. Basically, they're saving his hip, which essentially is wearing out through wear and tear. I don't think it's worth putting international rugby on top of that as well, although I think Borthwick might be tempted to. Essentially, he's going to play until his hip is knackered and then have a hip replacement or hip resurfacing, I'm sure. So I don't really think you want to be pushing him. Alex Dombrandt continues to perform fantastically for Harlequins, and he has been a favourite of Borthwick. He's got a great chance of going. Not sure if I'd take him internationally. Is he quite performed at a physical level? I don't know. Ben Earl's dropped off a little bit. Fantastic in attack sometimes, but can make a stack of mistakes. Was very costly in Saracens' last game, actually. Evans is out of it, I think, even though he's an exciting player. He's off to France. Fizzle out in a struggling Exeter is one of the highlights, that's for sure. Harding's always good for Bristol. Then we've got Ted Hill, who you know I'm a big fan of. Can make some mistakes though, so he's not perfect. Mercer is good enough, but he's going to France, so he probably won't feature. Big Tom Pearson can play 6 and 7 as an absolute beast if you want that sort of player. Then we've got a workhorse of Pepper, who's all over the place. But then we've got young Henry Pollock, who's just phenomenal all over the place, and his carrying is so nasty. Probably takes it above some of the other bigger guys, actually. Underhill continues to get injured, but when he plays for England, he's amazing. Roots has been in the England squad, but isn't quite in favour at the moment, and hasn't been putting in massive performances. But one guy who has been putting in massive performances is Tom Willis, and I would take Tom Willis with the bombshell, making Tom Willis my long-term captain for England. So really a big reboot there. Lead from the front, strong as an ox. I think he's got decent pace, decent skills as well. He's obviously not as quick as Ben Earl, say, but I think he's the guy you could build a team around. So big call there. Cunningham South I'd have in. Ben Curry makes it. Earl as an impact player probably. Ted Hill is another 6. Pepper and Pollock and Underhill, that's probably too many 7s, but I think with a big squad like 36, you can take some players along there for development. Not that they'll probably play a lot, if at all, but I think it's worth taking Pollock to get him into that England setup. Like I said, you don't want to overexpose him, but I think he has come on so quickly, much quicker than most of us thought he might, that I think he deserves his spot in that squad. Let me know what you think there, especially with that call of Tom Willis as the captain. I see 5 decent options at scrum half, all have some pros and cons. Mitchell's come back to Northampton with a bang and made a massive difference. You've got to have a scrum half who can break and offload. We see it with the great scrum halves, Gibson Park, Dupont, all those sort of players. Roygaard, they can break, they're a danger. Mitchell is that guy, as is Porter. Randall maybe has slipped down a little bit for me, but again, if you gave him a team, he'd be exciting. He's not the biggest, he hasn't got the biggest kick, so he's in a tough situation there. Spencer is a game controller. I think he can play better than he has done for England. I think he's been a bit restricted for England. Van Portfleet is in great form for Leicester, no doubt. He's been making those breaks and offloads that we want to see. Has he done it for England yet? Not really for me. I'm still not sure, still on the fence there, but he's performing well, really in form. So the 3 I'm going to take are Alex Mitchell, Will Porter and Ben Spencer, although a little bit torn on that third one, but certainly Mitchell and Porter I see as a very exciting combination. 2 fast-breaking scrum halves with decent skills as well. They could definitely take on defences and really worry them, which scrum halves have to do. Also at this point I'll mention the deal I've got going on with Manual Healthcare, where they've got 45% off their testosterone test. Normally it's like 38%. They've given us a little bit extra, so either use the code RugbyAnalyst45 on checkout, or the link in the description puts that straight on. So if you're thinking of getting a testosterone test for the new year, then get involved in that. That would be cool. On to fly half, and one guy has pushed themselves, I think, into consideration, and that's Fergus Burke of Saracens. He's taken over that mantle from Farrell and built and built and built. I think he's got to the level where you could put him in to internationals. I don't think we need him as such, but I think he's there, especially because we're quite light in that area. Ford, of course, is kicking around there, as are the 2 Smiths. All of those guys are, I think, in good form, but I think you only need 2 fly halves, especially if Furbank is fit. He could be the 3rd fly half. I think Finn Smith and Marcus Smith, give them the reins, say, off you go, you are the main men. If there's an injury, George Ford can slot straight in, so I don't think that's a problem, not including him. It lets you give a couple of other younger players the experience of the Six Nations. Centre-wise, I know we're light in the centres. What do? You've still got Slade kicking around, doing Sladey sorts of things. But we need a big 12. We need some 12s there to come forward. Are there any guys that I think could be world class? Not sure. I'm watching Ollie Hartley very closely of Saracens, but he hasn't played enough yet. Could be big. Will Butt of Bath, he could be a guy there. I think that Northmore could do a really good job at 12. He's very quick as well. Beard's super quick at 13. Lawrence, we know, can play 12 and 13. He's not perfect. His handling isn't the best. His ball retention sometimes can be a problem. Everyone says that Dingwall could be a great option, but has he got that world-class anything, particularly with his power game, with his pace? He knows his game. Normally his defence is pretty good, although he did fall off a bad one in the last round of the Champions Cup. But so many options, so many ways you could go. I would go for this one with Butt and Northmore as my 12s, Lawrence as a 13 where he's best, and Beard as my other 13. I think that would be the best combination, but a little bit of a shot there to nothing, but we will see. We need to do something in the centres to create more threat, to have more physical threat. Finally, into the back three wings. There's lots of wings in really good form. I think Tobias Elliott of Saracens has everything to be an international winger, but there's so many other guys in great form. Emmanuel Faye-Wabusu, with a struggling Exeter, is doing great things. He always beats the tackles. He's the man that makes things happen for them. That's a great sign when a team's struggling and you're still looking top class. You know you're good. Freeman's in good form. We know he's not the quickest, but he's a good finisher. He's strong. He's great in the air. A bit like Roebuck. Two big guys who are amazing in the air. Muir's another one like that. If any of those three had top quality pace as well, you'd say they could be world class. That's the only reservation I've got about them. If you want pace, then Ibitoy is in fire. He just absolutely scores for fun. He is the man. Murley, Slightholme, they've got loads of pace as well. Not a lot between them. Slightholme's got the experience of playing for England a bit more than the others. Who would I go for? Well, I think Faye-Wabusu, Freeman, Ibitoy, Murley and Roebuck. It's super close. Obviously, Slightholme's not in there at the moment, but I think on form, I'd go for those 5, but I could change my mind tomorrow, that's for sure, because it's such a hotly contested area. Freeman could well be a utility. You could use him at centre, use him at 15 as well, so that's worth thinking about. And then looking at fullback, there's a lot of choices you could go for here, depending what sort of fullback you want. Freddie Stewart is in fantastic form. He is playing the rugby of his life. I don't think he could be doing any more. It's just the fact that we know that he's just not that quick, and he's not the quickest on the turn especially, and that's going to put you at a disadvantage in certain situations. If you're willing to accept that, accept he's going to get beaten for pace at times, fine. His aerial work is phenomenal. His running game is his best it's been for ages. Hits those big lines, very strong. So if you like that sort of thing, take him. If you want a ball player, well, Daly's still got the skills. His kicking is phenomenal as well. His distribution is amazing. Not as quick as he was, though. I think for a skillful fullback, George Furbank's a better option because he's that bit quicker, although he wasn't as good in the autumn as I thought he would be. Carpenter-Assail, I think, is in the mix. And if you want the quickest of the lot, then Josh Hodge is your man. Plus, he's a supreme kicker and off the tee, which could take the pressure off a 10 sometimes. Defence-wise is the thing I've been watching. I think he's improving. He scores lots of tries, amazing on the counter-attack. I think he's a serious consideration. I've only got space for one at the moment, although maybe Stewart would be in, maybe Hodge would be in otherwise. So if Furbank is fit, I'd be going for him. If not, I think I might be going for Josh Hodge, actually, just because I don't think Freddie Stewart is my sort of player, but I can see why he would be in there. Anyway, that is the England semi-reboot I would go for in 2025, bringing in a few new players, a little bit of a mix-up, not chucking out all the experience, but certainly you are looking to the future with a new captain, Tom Willis, who could be that long-term captain. So finally, let's just chuck it out there. What sort of side might I put out from that squad? Well, maybe the 23 would look something like this, with a Poco Fajor starting over Genge coming off the bench, Dan and Stewart as your starting front row. That's exciting. Then Joe Hayes making it onto the bench. I think he's been really impressive. And Jamie Blamire coming back into that England squad. So a bit of a revamped front row. The second rows, I think Itoje and Chesham is the ideal mix there, with Martin, the power, coming off the bench. And I think this bench has got a lot of impact with Martin coming on, Ben Earl coming on, Will Porter, Finn Smith, Ollie Lawrence. Lots of game-changing power coming on there, excitement, pace. I think you need plenty coming off the bench in international rugby. Now, the back row was really, really difficult. I think the best balance I can come up with is Cunningham South as the big ball carrier and the other line-out option. Underhill at 7 if he's fit and he's got some games under his belt. Tom Willis at 8 as the captain. And then, yeah, like I said, Benno, the impact coming in at 7, at 8, wherever he's needed. Mitchell with Marcus Smith getting plenty of games under their belt. And then the Harlequins pairing in there of Northmore and Beard. Now, you could say, is that Harlequins' favouritism? Well, I just think if you're going to play one of them, you might as well play both because they're used to playing with each other. And I think they are dangerous attackers. They can push up quickly and make that hook defence if that's what you want to do. Beard's very good at that. Then you have to have a Faubusu on one wing, who is the danger man. Who's on the other? Tricky one. I think you need some height. Is it Freeman? Well, I think Roebuck's a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger, a little bit better in the air. So I think for now, it's Roebuck, but you could go Freeman. And then if he's fit, George Furbank. If not, then we've got Josh Hodge. And then, like I said, on the bench, Will Porter, Finn Smith and Ollie Lawrence in the back. So that's the 23 I'm thinking of at the moment. But please tell me how wrong I am, or if you agree, that would be amazing. Pop all those comments down below. Love to read them all. Do like, do subscribe. That's always awesome. And I'll catch you next time.